Good evening and welcome back to the third tier. The long summer is over, and what a summer it was. England just missing out in the Euro final. A bit of heartbreak, but football is back to cheer us all up. And it seems like ages ago that the Euros were on. And it seems like ages ago I spoke to my lovely co-host. Evening, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Lovely, eh? Cheers. Missed
Lovely,
you too.
Yeah.
I think we're all just over England now, aren't we?
Just about.
Two and a bit weeks on. But yeah, it's getting close to the proper stuff again now, isn't it? So, and you talk of sort of heartwarming stories. I think tonight's episode's definitely going to be one of them. It should be good. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it's just incredible to be back talking about League One and football in general. And I still love it the same, even though I've managed to escape. Just hopefully it can have the same effect on you or Graham this season as well. Good evening, John, one of our regulars. We've got a little kiss as well.
Look at that.
Thank you very much. But first,
free stuff.
You're not giving any more stuff, John. But we're going to introduce our guests first and foremost. So welcome, Charlie, and welcome, James. Now, James, it was your idea to introduce each other rather than yourself. It feels like there's a Bonucci and Chiellini kind of thing going on with you two here. So I'll let you.
We just got over talking about the Italians. When are we going to have to bring them up again?
I'll let you introduce first and foremost, Charlie. So take it away.
We've got more than Bonucci and Chiellini. We're older, which is amazing. And B, we've been best mates since we were 6, 5 maybe even. So Charlie is just probably the most inspiring person I know. He got diagnosed with Parkinson's a few years ago. And before that, he was pretty amazing. He was running companies. He was always doing amazing things that made everybody around him think he's great. Since he got Parkinson's, he's decided he wants to do everything in about 5 seconds flat. So he's like Mr. Carp Diem. And in the time since he's been diagnosed with Parkinson's, he's founded a charity. He's doubled the size of his business. He's got us both involved in the board at Morecambe. He sponsored the first team shirts. He's done a myriad of things really, and he lights a fire under the rest of us that we just can't put out. You can't dampen his enthusiasm. So yeah, he's an incredible person to sit alongside. And this is the first time, despite the fact we've been best mates since we were 6, that we've actually worked together. So it's quite nice from that perspective as well.
What a job to go into working together as well, like a dream job, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Proper boyhood dreams type stuff.
Charlie, I'm not sure you can top that, but you can tell the listeners or the viewers about your best friend, James, if you can.
Yeah, James is 46. No, James is a wonderful person as well. He wouldn't be my best friend for no reason. He was in the army for a long time, won an award from the Queen for bravery in the Iraq War, for services to rebuilding Basra. Amazing guy who's motivated and inspired a number of people in so many different ways as well. So we work well together, and we love Morecambe Football Club, and we are literally living the dream of playing real life Football Manager, platform game in real life,
and buying a lot of merchandise.
All the merchandise.
Good evening, Andy. Nice to have you on. Good evening, Scott, and welcome back. And as well, Ant's a Hull fan who joined us on the pod last year. So, two of us who have escaped the league. We'll come on to lots of aspects in this podcast and video. But first and foremost, Charlie, I'll come to you first. But you say you're living the dream. But how did becoming sort of directors come about first and foremost? I know it was a couple of years ago now, a few years ago. What does it actually feel like to be a fan and obviously be involved in the club as well? Because it's most football fans' dream.
Well, it's first of all, it's such a special football club. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube documentary we broadcast today, but that sums it up. I think it's 37 minutes of pure joy. I mean, I even tweeted out twice today because I was so proud of it. That it's not just a football club. It's a community. It's a tradition. It's improving. It's growing, and we're right at the epicenter of that, and we're trying to do the best job we can possibly do. Short answer to your question is that James was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I wanted to be involved with the club. So they needed a shirt sponsor. Rang up Graham. Agreed a world record fee apparently, but I was happy with the price. That was good. Went from there. I entered the Parkinson's European Football Championship 2 years ago, so we were invited to train with the squad.
Oh, wow.
With Jim Bentley was wonderful there. and we sort of crept our way in. And when Jim resigned, we offered our services as board advisors to see if we could help out the club, because I built a strong relationship with Jason and Colin, the owners, and it was just really, really great. And they asked us to become board directors not long after, and we've really enjoyed our time with James.
That's brilliant, really inspiring stuff as well. Same question to you, James.
Oh, how do we get involved, or what does it feel
like?
No,
I know. Yeah, I know how you got involved now, but how does it feel personally to be involved, obviously, with your boyhood club?
Well, I basically got involved as Charlie's sidekick. There's no bones about that at all. I wouldn't have met any of the people if it hadn't been for Charlie's involvement. As for how it feels, I mean, as Charlie says, it's more than just football. It's the town, it's the area that we're both incredibly proud of, and that we both want to see do well and be proud of itself. And so, it's just incredible to be involved. And I think as well, because Morecambe historically is more limited in its resources than most clubs, the roles that directors have been able to play in the last few years has been much more active and operational. I think we're probably, to an extent, by professionalizing a lot of functions, by bringing people in to do things properly, we're probably slightly reducing our ability to be as actively involved as maybe directors have been in the past and as we've been in the last couple of years. But it's still absolutely wonderful to be doing anything, frankly, for your football club.
No, spot on. Just a small insight to your history then. Obviously non-league for many years, winning promotion to the conference in 95 and then to the promised land of the Football League in 2007. So over the next few seasons, or should I say decade, you managed to sort of defy the odds season after season. First 3 seasons specifically. I'll just turn off that WhatsApp, I do apologise. Where you finished sort of 11th twice and then 4th, and then over the next few seasons it was quite consistent finishes around the mid-table mark. Then, obviously, as a documentary showed, became 2017, 2018. James, I'll come to you first. Tell us a bit more about that season, why it was so pivotal in Morecambe's history.
So it was a tough one. The club had been relatively stable for a long time. Had been run and owned by one chairman and sort of majority investor. And to be fair to him, he invested a huge amount in the club over a number of years, and he quite legitimately decided to step away. And into the breach came 2 successive chances, is probably the only way you can describe them, and the club's stability just evaporated in a very short space of time. Despite that, the manager and the players managed to not let that affect their performance, but had already been struggling. And ultimately it was a tough period, but it was one that the club came through. But as a result of that, the reputation of the club, which is somewhat unfair, is one of financial difficulty and problems off the field. But actually, really, it was just one sort of prolonged period where there was a lot of uncertainty. And we're just very thankful to Jason and Colin for coming in when they did and for bringing stability financially to the club. And I think since that time, whilst the league position and the following season may not reflect it, but actually the club has been on a steady upward trajectory. And obviously then the last couple of seasons have seen quite a lot of change happen quite quickly. But yeah, there was a very challenging period there where a long period of growth and relative stability just became incredibly uncertain for a period of time. But hey, the club came through it. And has been on a pretty steady upward trajectory since then.
Yeah, you could say that. It's pretty understated, that, judging by sort of how last season went. And Charlie, I'll come to you. Just watching, obviously didn't know Morecambe inside of out. Being a Blackpool fan, we're quite fond of sort of Morecambe and the size of the club, a bit like Accrington Stanley model, where every pound is so important and the fans mean so much to the club and the community. Judge literally watching the final day bit of the documentary, the 0-0 draw at Coventry. Do you have any, should I say, fond memories of that day, or describe your emotions on that day, especially towards the end of the 90 minutes?
From speaking to all people like Alex Kenyon, Sam Lavelle, Jim Bentley, and Barry Roach on that day, that was Barry Roach pulled off 2 amazing saves to keep us in the Football League. And it was just it was relief when Coventry knew they just needed a draw, and they just started kicking the ball around the last couple of minutes the pressure was off, but it could have gone either way. But thanks to Super Barry Roach, who's now our goalkeeping coach, we're still in the Football League and the league above.
Absolutely. There's a chant there, isn't there? Barry Roach, the goalkeeper coach.
Yeah.
Pay me later. Matt, over to you, buddy.
Yeah, it was just something going back to the documentary, which I really enjoyed. Obviously, it's from an outsider's perspective, and it gives you sort of a more insider's aspect and an idea of what it's like. But there was one thing that resonated with me right at the end, and that was the comment regarding everything feels more connected at lower league level. And I can totally understand that, being a Gillingham fan as well. I know Tom's been lucky in the last few years to have gone to the Championship and gone to the Premier League and played all the big teams, the Sky teams and all that type of thing. But for me, there's a lot more connectivity at lower league level. Like, I run a YouTube channel and we've had players on and interviewed them, and you wouldn't be able to do that thing if you were sort of doing it from a Premier League club, because there's just no access anywhere at all. But so I just wanted to get more of a sense of that community feel and what other sort of things you do in the community for Morecambe the town, as opposed to just Morecambe the football club. That can be. I'll go to Charlie first.
James, you want to talk about the Shrimps Trust New Initiative?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so we've got a fantastic MFC community sports set up. We've got a Shrimps Trust, a fans trust that has grown and gone from strength to strength. That actually was set up in direct response to those ownership troubles in 17-18. But has gone from being an organisation that was really there to try and protect the integrity and the future of the football club to being something that works now hand in glove with the football club in a really positive way. But, you know, for the scale of Morecambe and our perceived traditional fan base, there's 500 plus members of that already for the current season, and that's growing. And they do all sorts. They've raised money to stick a roof behind, or to contribute to sticking a roof behind the home stand. They're currently running a really good initiative to raise money for season tickets for those who can't afford them for themselves, who've been particularly hard hit by the pandemic. There's going to be 16 volunteers from the trust who are going to be helping to put seats into the stadium, because we've done the buy the new seats thing, which is really, really good news, because we've got those faded red seats that look horrendous. So there's all sorts of good stuff coming from the trust. Community Sports is a fantastic organisation that I think our new general manager is going to do a lot to build a really strong relationship with going forward. And then Charlie's been trying to make sure that we bring the ladies set up into the fold more and make the whole club act as one. So I'll pass on to Charlie to talk a bit about MFC ladies.
Yeah, so we've got basically the 3-year plan, which I don't know if you want to talk about later on, but it's to be, I did a bit early, but it was to be a competitive sustainable League One club by 2024. So we actually hit the League One bit 3 years early, which is obviously very good. But we want to make sure we're as competitive and sustainable as possible. We're quite sustainable financial wise, but sustainable in all the other ways of sustainability of fan base and community spirit and all that sort of stuff. So we've got a Morecambe Family Club, family partnership with the trust, the community sports, the academy and the ladies, and the club itself. And they're all quite federated. So if we bring them all together under one banner, we've also got strength in numbers and strength in togetherness. So what's really, really important is that, I spoke to the ladies, head of the ladies football, and said, how many of your ladies and girls come to watch the first team on Saturday? Hardly any. How many of the academy come to watch? Hardly any. There's a fan base there we're not making the most of. So that's why this year I'm not sponsoring the first team shirts. I'm sponsoring the academy and the ladies football to put my money where my mouth is to, bring the Morecambe family together. So we're working together as one club, one community, and helping us achieve ultimate success on the pitch, getting the championship.
Yeah, that's a big statement, but really, you dare to dream, and especially with campaigns recently. Well, this season, isn't it, Matt? We had her game 2 on, which I'm sure you both heard of in recent months, where they're promoting obviously females being involved in football and families and young girls playing football and promoting it all across socials. And it's just been a breath of fresh air. And obviously we've seen a lot more females be involved, and it's become, thank God, the normality now, from being on TV to being all across social media as well. So that's really good to see. You said the trust was created in sort of 2017, 2018, or that scheme. How popular has it been in terms of, you said there's already 500 members this year. Has it had the same impact being in League Two, or is it sort of burst, should I say, since promotion?
No. To be fair, that was the membership. So they had 500 members last year. They cracked the 500 mark for the first time last season. They're already approaching that number for the current season. And typically, trust membership goes up as you go through because the membership cost isn't enormous. So I think they'll go well beyond. And I'm not sure anybody really knows quite where we're going to land in terms of our fan base for the 2021 season. But we've got some pretty lofty ambitions, and we've tried to put some slightly more clever and innovative things in place to really achieve the boost that we need. Because ultimately, unless we're getting 4,000 in on an average basis in League One, we're going to be struggling a bit. So we don't know where that fan base is going to land, but I do think there's going to be a nice mutual gain to be had between the club and the trust, because wherever that fan base lands, it's going to be an additional pool of people that the trust can get as members, and obviously the same is true the other way around. But we've got some clubs that maybe don't think they should be within our sights, and achieving a much higher average attendance and really improving the fan experience and the matchday experience is a massive part of this, because ultimately, we haven't got a sugar daddy. We're not owned by Ryan Reynolds, and Charlie's not about to pour 6 million quid into things. And so we've got to do what we're going to do sustainably, and that means 4,000 fans on a Saturday, and as far north of that as we can possibly get. So yeah, we don't know where we're going to land yet, but we have sold a lot of season tickets versus the historical record. So yeah, funnily enough, Matt, I've looked at the average attendances from 1920. And the club that is our stretch target is Gillingham.
I think you mentioned last week, didn't you, when we touched base on Twitter? Yeah, that was me messaging you, not Tom, because we both got access to the Twitter account.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll catch Gillingham, but I do think we'll be knocking on the door of maybe AFC Wimbledon, and that would be an enormous shift on from where Morecambe's been historically. But we don't know yet. We won't know until Shrewsbury at home on the first competitive game of the season.
One thing to say is each director's got his reporting family part. So James looks after the trust, I look after the ladies, me looks after the academy, and Rod looks after the community sports. When these trust guys are so helpful and so on board now with us, and we're such a close-knit community and close-knit club. When we first came along, they're in JB's bar in the club, and I went along to introduce myself, and it was a bit like, who is this southerner pretending to be a northerner? Who's this guy with the straight face? I think we had to earn their respect, which James and I really liked. We had to prove ourselves, prove our worth. I've got good intentions, and we have a really lot of fun on Twitter with them. And I think James and I are quite involved in that part. I think the fans always wanted more communication. Was the number one thing that we had when I came along, about communication with the fans. I don't think we could be doing any more of that personally. James and I, but also we've got interviewing for our new head of media and communications this week. That's going to come in place in the next couple of weeks. And Rod and Graham on the ground, and Mick and in Morecambe have done a fantastic job keeping the communication up there as well. So it's all going really well.
Yeah, that's really refreshing to hear. And communication, I mean, we've had League One fans on the podcast, obviously, over the last sort of 3-4 months, even Ipswich fans before they got their new owners. They didn't hear from their first team manager or anyone above for 3 or 4 months. It was the assistants taking the post-match and pre-match, and they just didn't know anything. And even a club of Ipswich size, it was just having the effects on their fan base. And Charlie, just you speaking there and just saying every branch of the tree of Morecambe is being taken care of is just beautiful, because you just know it's in good hands, and you care deeply about the club. So it's really good to see. And it's just commented, fan involvement is so important, helps ensure the club goes in the right direction. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Les, really important. The football club is in and out of the community. This is why what happened to Bury is so sad, of course. And the ninth major has said, "Can we vote for the best beard?" You may. I don't know who's going to win that, but just moving on a little bit. We'll move on to last season. So just before we start, obviously in 2019, that was in November, wasn't it? Derek Adams came in. He replaced Jim Bentley. I think it would be amiss of me to not mention Jim Bentley himself and what he was like as a manager, because outside looking in, he was the heart and soul of the club, or being an engine, keeping the team going, and he cared deeply about the club. And I just wanted to know sort of what it was.
What a man! Unbelievably helpful to everyone. So friendly, approachable. All the players said the best manager ever. He was just he's a wonderful person. He was at the playoff final. He was at the playoff final at Wembley, being interviewed in the suite where we all were. He was just a wonderful, wonderful man, and I just think he worked so hard and put so much in, and it was time for refreshing. Really, he wanted to go. He resigned, went to Fylde, with our good wishes, and it was a sad loss. I was actually at the last game, the Stevenage game. My son was mascot, and that sums him up. He knew he was resigning. He knew it was the biggest days in his career, but he still invited my son into the changing room before the match, meet all the players, lead them out onto the pitch. He was crying before the match, and it all came out. It was a really, really, really emotional day. But we're still in contact with him. He's a legend of the club, always will be, and it was very sad. But obviously, it sparked a new era for the club.
Of course. And James, just sort of going on to what Charlie said there, if he resigned with your well wishes, of course. But does that show what kind of person he was, as well as a manager saying it's time for me to go? And he knew it needed a freshen up. He didn't just stay there and it became stagnant, so to speak. Obviously, he would always be loved at the club, but those things can turn sour if they welcome their stay, and you get relegated, for example, and they leave with lesser memory. So was that sort of an impact of what kind of man and manager he was?
I think. I mean, there's no sort of dressing it up. Jim competed with a very, very, very low budget for a very, very long time, and he did quite well in a number of seasons. But whenever he managed to not be bottom three, it was quite rightly considered a massive achievement. I think that when Fylde came knocking, at the time they were a level above where they are now, and Jim can't be blamed for that because he took over a club that was already in a slightly difficult position. But they've got a big old budget there at Fylde. They've got a real ambition, and it's just down the road. And how often do you get the opportunity to not have to uproot your family and to literally carry on being a football manager, potentially with a really ambitious club that, at its level, is punching for the very top, where Morecambe wasn't doing that at the time. I had a good chat with Jim at Wembley, and I think he's sort of looking back at Morecambe, and he's thinking, if maybe I should have stuck around, because there is a lot more ambition around the club now. But you can't make your decisions with the benefit of hindsight. That's only something you can look at after. And as Charlie says, he'll be an absolute legend. There's no damage to Jim's legacy at Morecambe. He's loved. He's on the Legends wall. He's just a legend, simple as that. And he's done incredible things. So I'm really, really hoping that there's no disruption to the National League North this year, and they can go on a run at Fylde and probably do a double jump, because they've got very much the ambition and the capability to do it. I'd love nothing more than to see Fylde leap into the Football League in a couple of years' time.
How nice would it be to play against him as well? That would be quite eerie as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, they'll make the Championship quite.
Matt, over to you, buddy.
Yeah, I just want to talk about. Obviously, we know you lost Jim, and then Derek Adams coming that Tom's already alluded to. I just wanted to ask. I'll go to you, Charlie, because James has just done the last section. What did Derek do different that meant you suddenly became? Because it's quite apparent in the documentary that you talk about. Morecambe are always the underdogs. Morecambe are always, if you finish one place above the relegation zone, that should be deemed a success. There's always vast amount of noughts on your price at the beginning of the season to get in the top 7, the top 3, promotion and all that type of thing. What did Derek do to come in and change the mentality, maybe? Or
yeah, he was so focused on football, much less of a man. Jim was a character, sort of father figure, and people go to him with, Derek was much more of a football. He just wanted a small squad. Jim had quite a large squad, didn't he, James? 30 players or so, and they're in the reserve league and doing all these different things, and they'd go on holiday together and all this sort of stuff. Derek was a brilliant man manager and brought out the best in people as players, but he just wanted 2 players in each position of equal quality who worked out. Fitness was unbelievable. I remember the Aaron and Sam and the guys all said last season how pre-season training was the hardest they've ever done. You know, for example, the goalies couldn't believe they had to do the fitness training. You know, Jim didn't get them to do fitness training. You know, they had to all do it. They were all absolutely exhausted, but they were so fit. If you look at last season, how many games we won in the last minute, in the last couple of minutes, equalisers, winners, fighting to the end, was because our fitness was so high, so good. Derek had a real key part on that, and everyone was competing. So if you were in the team and you got injured or you got COVID and you were out of the team, you had to win your way back in. You didn't just get back in. It was very competitive. There was 2 equally placed players in each position, like I said, and they were made to compete and work hard. And he brought out the best in. You know, some of the best players were actually Jim was saying at Wembley, wasn't he? They were his players he signed, but Derek brought out a lot more in the results wise and the goals wise, especially people like Cole Stockton, Carlos Mendes Gomez, those guys, Aaron Wildig. You know, the goals went up a lot, and you know, played Derek ball, where our average possession was like 28-29%, but Derek always used to say famously, "There's only one stat that matters: how many goals you score." You know, that was very, very true.
We had that levelled at us last season as Gilles, like, oh, we don't play the right way, we go direct, but we're playing to our strengths, and that's what you can do. And if you've not got loads of money to spend, and you've got to find ways to win and compete with bigger teams, then you do it.
I think we had most chances created, nearly most goals scored. Even though we didn't have like Verdane Oliver, he obviously used to play for Morecambe, banging in 30 goals whatever for Gillingham. You know, we had people bringing 3 or 4 people on the 15 goal mark, which is amazing.
That's it, and you need everyone to chip in, don't you? And it has to be a proper collective effort. And I think that was another sort of telling comment that I heard on the documentary, and that was everybody knew their jobs. And like you say, it seems to be that you just had 2 goalies, 2 right backs, 2 left backs, so on and so on, and there was no sort of dropping off of the quality. If one of them right backs wasn't available, the other one come in and did exactly the same role. And James, I want to ask you quickly though, before we move on a little bit to the next section, how do you and Charlie and all the other directors, the players, the fans, how do you approach that sort of underdog tag? Does it get on your nerves at times, or do you just embrace it and just think, right, we're going to go and we'll be little Morecambe, we'll be the underdog, and we'll enjoy it a bit more when we go and ruffle a few feathers and ultimately get promoted at Wembley and get into League One for the first time ever?
It's funny. There's a positive way of being an underdog, and then there's a negative way of being an underdog. You know, the negative way of being an underdog is you don't expect much. You're trying to just stay in the league. Big club comes, you get rolled over. You're like, well, yeah, but look how big they are. Look how much more money they've got. Look how many fans they've got. The positive way of an underdog is, you know, with a big smile on your face and in a very respectful way, to basically say, bring it on. And also to quietly enjoy the fact that bigger clubs are often complacent. Bigger organisations are often complacent. Bigger organisations will waste resources because they've got weak resources to waste. We won't waste anything. You know, we will not have somebody doing a poor job. We will not accept something not being improved to the most it can possibly be improved, because we've got to get the whole thing singing to compete. But if other people want to believe that they're bigger and better, and therefore want to make poor decisions and waste resources as they do so, well, great. If your opponent's making mistakes, don't stop them. So I think we've got to make sure that we embrace the underdog thing. And in League Two, it was really important that we dropped it once and for all. Derek was right. The goodbye little old Morecambe was an important thing to say, because in League Two we weren't actually as sort of separated an underdog as maybe people thought. It was just this perception of little old Morecambe, but we were getting the same fan base as Accrington. We weren't far off Burton Albion, who were the league above us, but there was a perception of little old Morecambe just happy to be in League Two. Now we're coming into League One, and I will admit that we're smaller than an awful lot of organisations in League One, but the same principles apply. Embrace the underdog tag in a positive way. Don't waste anything, and let other people waste stuff. And ultimately that, and in a number of other ways, use of data properly, use of facts and figures rather than perception and confidence. That's how we'll compete.
We will enjoy the event of being in League One and going to the Championship in the future. We will enjoy it. We'll be there with a smile on our faces. We won't worry if we lose a few games, but I'm confident that we'll get 10 points this season from people thinking they're going to beat us 3 or 4-0, and when we start playing, they're going to be thinking, "Oh my God, we're scoring any goal and they're up against it."
It's funny. On that point, I won't name the club, but there was one club in particular that came last season, towards the end of the season, and we beat them. And one of their directors made a slightly throwaway comment about how we'd not had much possession, and in his view, which wasn't a very informed view, he obviously knows nothing about XG, but his view was that we got lucky and we'd done a bit of a smash and grab, and he said you can't expect to do that in every game. And I was feeling a bit more bullish than I normally am. And I said, well, it's worked for 40-odd games. Thank you very much. And that's the reality of it. But, we let other people believe that they're bigger and better and just do your job really well.
I'm going to chuck Bradford into the ring to be that club, but you don't have to answer.
We now know it's someone after 40 games, so we can work it out.
Yeah, that's what I just had a quick look.
There was a few big teams after 40 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a a quick comment based on what you said. Like, it's really interesting if you look at League One now, especially. Matt will agree that you've got an abundance of teams that want promotion to the Championship, who have the God-forgiven right to think they shouldn't be in League One. And you're spot on. If you're focused on your dream and your goal, as Charlie's alluded to, like, there's no reason why you can't achieve the Championship. So stranger things have happened, and it, after a couple of years, or even who believe in, within a couple of seasons, you do start to challenge. League One is that weird kind of club where you've got unity and you can put a run together, then you do start pulling up trees a little bit. So I'm really buzzing to see Morecambe in the league, because, like you say, there's all these big dogs like Sunderland, Ipswich, Charlton, that are going to Pompey, who are going to want to get promotion, and you're going to go there and you're going to cause some upsets, and it's how they react to you rather than the other way around, isn't it? So I'm looking forward to it.
2 big away games when we first start: Ipswich and Gillingham, first 2 games. Yeah. And one of James and I, best friends, is Gill's fan. We're looking forward to going with him, but I would have thought, I'm not, don't quote me on this, but I would have thought Ipswich will be thinking they've got an easy game, first game of the season at home against Morecambe. They've got all their new ownership, all the new ambition. We might go on and lose the game, but we'll give it a really, really, really amazing go, and that will be a tough proposition they're expecting, I'm sure.
Good. Yeah, Matt, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about last season.
Just listening to you two for 33 minutes, I think there's going to be no fear from Morecambe next season, and I'm pretty confident listening to you two for half hour that there's going to be a few teams.
This might be a compliment from Les.
Do I not?
I was going to say, I don't know if that's a compliment to James or.
Here's Les.
I'll mute Les from now on. No more comments. Matt, I know you wanted to go a little bit onto last season. So over to you.
Yeah, and it just follows on from what I was just saying there before Liz commented about. I think just talking to Charlie and James for half hour, it's really clear that Morecambe are not coming into this division to finish one place above the relegation zone. They might do, and then that'd still, I think, from an outsider's point of view, that'd probably still be deemed a success to stay in the division, because it gives you the chance to consolidate. But looking back at last season, you won half your games in the league. You scored plenty, 69. I think you only lost back-to-back league games once, and that was in October. That's a phenomenal record.
There's so many amazing games. I'm sure the fans watching this at the moment will remember, the Salford game, he scored in the 94th, 96th minute, and they had an equaliser disallowed in the 97th minute. We saw the Forest Green in the 95th minute. We fought to the end so many times. I think Charlton won the first game of the season. Charlton were obviously favourites to win the league. And the first game of the season, we came back from 1-0 down to win 2-1. We had Adam Phillips left, and everyone thought we were doomed because Adam Phillips scored a lot of goals, and Toombs came in and did a fantastic job. It was just, and it was, you forget how it all rolled out. There was no fans there. James and I were lucky enough to be able to go to these games, so it was surreal. Something you could just hear everything, and it was bizarre. But ultimately, our best ever season. So that, I think that's why I said people are so excited about this season coming up, that we're actually in League One, and it's going to be amazing. And Sunderland put on social media, the last game of the season is Sunderland at home for us. They put that start the promotion party, end of season at Morecambe. One of our fans put, "Thanks so much for arranging a promotion party for Morecambe."
Brilliant.
That's the way we feel about it. People think we're going to roll over, but I think last season, I think we retained 8 players from last season. The spine of the promotion winning playoff starting 11. But that's good to have that consistency. And Stephen's come in and brought some. Our transfer activity has been absolutely fantastic.
I was
it's been difficult to keep up with. I see you've got another one in this afternoon as well, haven't you? The lad from Jonah Ioga from Bristol Rovers, So we'll get onto that in a couple of minutes. Anyway, I just wanted to get back through that season as well. James, I'll come to you now. There was 4 wins on the bounce in December. Was that the point where you started thinking something's happening here, or was it another point in the season? Because there were so many, like Charlie, his memory's unbelievable.
For me, it was such a ridiculously tight league, probably until about 5 weeks out from the end, that you couldn't look into a run of results or your league position too much, because there was at various different points, it was the most competitive league in the world, not just in England. There was like the smallest of gaps between 5th and 15th. It was ridiculous. So I think quite rightly, and it was mentioned on the documentary, I know that Graham and Rod were starting to feel quite hopeful and quite confident around about the halfway point. The point at which I think I got quite excited is the point. Actually, it was after the Salford game that we lost at theirs, when Derek got quite annoyed and he showed a bit of emotion in an interview for the first time. And he
doesn't know anything about football.
He basically said, he said that Wellens knows nothing about football, and then he said, "This is a right good side. This is a right good side." And knowing Derek, he wasn't basing that on emotion or anything else. He was basing it on data. Derek is a convert to Moneyball, and he knew that team was a good team. And actually, to be fair, from that point on, we won more of those games that we should have won than we lost, and it was this sort of steady progression. But it wasn't until a few weeks out, when we were very safe in the playoff spots and we were genuinely competing for automatic promotion. At that point, you could feel confident. But until a few weeks out, it was such a ridiculously tight league. If we or any other team had lost 1 or 2 players to either injury or COVID, then it could all have very easily unravelled or gone forward. So it was only a few weeks out that I started to get really confident. But Salford away, Derek said, "This is a right good side," and he got really annoyed about it. And again, it was based on data, not hunch or emotion.
For me, it was Forest Green away, where everyone went absolutely crazy. Carlos Mendes Gomez scored a header in the last minute. Coldstock scored a really good goal in the first half, and Aaron Wildig and a few of the players didn't celebrate towards Carlos. They celebrated facing the Forest Green players. The Forest Green players were basically thinking they were going to win the game and were being a bit cocky. And Derek went crazy. Derek was like, "That's what you get. That's what you." Everyone went absolutely crazy. And that Forest Green, the whole squad of players couldn't believe they'd conceded a goal. And then they went on. The manager left a couple of games later after that. There's the Morecambe curse. And so many managers get sacked after losing to Morecambe. You look into it. So many managers get sacked because the chairman think, "Oh, they lost a small club like Morecambe."
Wow.
There's a high probability if you lose to Morecambe, you might lose your job.
It would. I wanted to comment on this because weirdly, I met a very well-known striker or ex-striker of yours just after the Blackpool game at Wembley, Kevin Ellison. It would be the game against Newport when he laughed at Derek Adams when he scored. How did Derek Adams actually react to that, or did you get a feeling for how that made him feel? Because it's very cool considering what happened, because most managers really react to that, but he stood there quite calmly, didn't he? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Derek wanted to know that the club was supportive of him, and that despite the fact that Kevin Ellison is again another club legend, he scored more goals in the professional era than any other player, and came to us when people thought he was winding down his career, and actually kicked on for years and years and years, scoring fantastically important goals. So Derek just wanted to know that the club was behind him, and we all absolutely were, as were all the fans. But he wasn't that bothered. He didn't want to make a big deal of it. And to be fair, I think even at that point, quite a few of us thought it would be, properly written if we end up facing Newport in the playoffs, and that we ended up placing them in the playoff final is, nobody's going to be telling that story or reposting that picture again, because all's well that ends well.
Absolutely. Matt, sorry, did you want to continue or do you want me to move on?
I think we've summed it up. I had a bit about 5 of the last 6 and only losing to Bolton, but we've skipped that and we've gone to that playoff final. So I'll let James and Charlie talk about that for a couple of minutes, because who doesn't want to talk about winning at Wembley, quite frankly?
Categorically the best day of my life. I told my wife and kids that as well when they were there with me. It was unbelievable. My wife, James's wife and kids were there. My wife and kids were there. My mum was there. He was obviously to take me down to Christie Park when I was younger. It was just an absolute privilege to be there, to be involved, and to actually, it was just so surreal to be there. Luckily, we were in the out in the sun. All the fans were baked. I mean, the people in Morecambe, they didn't do any sun cream with them, so they had to get 3rd-degree burns taken off them when they got home. It was so hot, but they made more noise than anyone. We probably didn't deserve to win the game if you look at the stats. Like James said on the documentary, over 49 games, we probably just edged the right to be promoted. There was the Carl Leathern accidental punch in the head of their striker, which got missed. Which they've been Carl's been quite fun on social media with since, but it has to be given. The penalty, in the ground, no one said anything about it being not being a penalty. It's quite contentious, but obviously on television, if you've got the benefit of the doubt, but in the ground, no one said it. It really did look like it was inside the box. So it wasn't like it was blatant, and Carlos had to stand up there and slot it away. He did a fantastic job, and we were all just so proud of the players who worked so hard. And we talk about the directors and the fans, and those players had to work so hard throughout the season. They weren't allowed inside. They weren't training on grass. They weren't allowed inside Lancaster. We've got this stuff on social media now about Lancaster University and how amazing the facility is. They weren't allowed to use it because of COVID. They had a bloody gazebo in the snow, like an Argos gazebo, huddling under it for months. They were such tough conditions. They were known to get changed. They all bloody deserve medals.
Yeah.
We cannot we can come up with the plans and the boardroom we want. Those guys went out on the pitch and did it for us. We should be eternally grateful for them. And to see them not under a gazebo, in the freezing cold and in the basking sunshine of Wembley, lifting that trophy. I've got goosebumps coming at the back of my neck now thinking about it. It was absolutely unbelievable. And to see my sons there, I've got this picture of them celebrating. When my son's 8 and when the penalty, he basically ran to the Newport bit going, "We're gonna win! We're gonna win!" I was like, and then we had the COVID-friendly after show after end of season party at in St Albans when they were on the way up on the motorway. We all got together, had a celebration, and we all looked back, and it was just unbelievable. Can you add anything to that, James?
No, I mean you put it right. My daughters saw a different side of Daddy. In fact, they saw 3 different sides of Daddy during the course of the full 120 minutes. And I think it was pretty special. Again, all of us who are Morecambe fans in this era are blessed, because most of us have seen Morecambe win at Wembley twice, and there's not many clubs of Morecambe's historic stature that can say that. But Charlie and I have been there together twice. Once as fans, just to the behind and right of the goal, and once sitting up in the director's box. Listening to all of the great and the good doing speeches, but it was pretty amazing. The game was rubbish. We didn't play particularly well. The pitch is slow. It was ridiculously hot. But as I said, we were the better team over 49 games. So I don't care about the stats in one game. That's football. If we'd lost that game and we'd been stuffed again, that would just been football. But over the season, we were better. Period.
And also, I think the positivity around the club is not around League One. We're not positive as we're in League One. I think if we hadn't been promoted, we still have the same positivity. Yeah. We'd have the same 3-year plan. We still have the same ambition. We'd have come away from Wembley again. We did amazingly well. I went out the ground afterwards. The fans were all still singing. The fans were absolutely amazing, and they'd obviously not been able to go watch any of the matches. And what a great way to get back into it. And the Tranmere game, the atmosphere of the Tranmere game was second to none as well. So everyone involved in the club should be very, very proud, and that's why we're going to enjoy this season.
Yeah, I think for me, when I noticed sort of the Morecambe fans and how much they believed I think you just missed out on whether it was last day or last couple of games of the season, but they just stood outside, proud as ever, cheering you on, and then seeing you off to Wembley as well. And like you said, over 49 games, football works itself out, and whether it's a penalty or not, I call it fate, and it was your destiny to be in League One because you deserve it. And you can keep up that 100% record all you like, especially if you get to the League One playoff final. John's just commented saying there seemed to be the outside looking in. There's no egos in the squad. You were awesome all season, particularly in the playoffs. Fairy tale come true. And then Tom Collins has added Derek Adams should have been the EFL Manager of the Year. Yeah, I don't disagree. Now on to Adams, because you sure will know what I'm going to say now. Did you think in your wildest dreams that a couple of days later you potentially be interviewing for another manager? I don't, I've watched the documentary and how it kind of came across, but I reckon, James, I'll come to you first. It was quite a shock when you I know it was in the pipeline for a while, but how did it actually make you feel when you heard the news?
So we had a pretty good idea. Actually, it was at the Forest Green away match. Charlie and I had a chat, and we basically looked each other in the eye. We've done recruitment for the best part of 20 years in Charlie's case, and 17 years in mine. And you just know, your gut tells you something. That said, I genuinely believe that Derek hadn't made his mind until immediately after that game. There was just a good chance that he might be seriously considering something else. So we were ready to act quickly. It wasn't maybe as big a shock as some people thought it was, but there was a chance that we might not have been in that position right up to the point where we were. As it was. You can often sound like you're post-rationalizing things with the benefit of hindsight, but as it was and as it is, because we were able to move quickly and because we didn't sort our retain list out, and we basically said to Stephen once we'd hired him, like, go, and he had the ability to build from scratch. It's a pretty positive situation we're in because we've got a really good manager, and a manager who I think people in England underrate for all of the wrong reasons, none of which are database, and all of which are based on the wrong factors. And he's been able to build a squad from scratch. There's no legacy players, as people say. There's no fat. So I think what we've got and what we're building for this coming season couldn't be in a much better position. But yeah, it wasn't a complete surprise, but equally it could have gone the other way.
Yeah, and just Charlie, come to you. Just a word on your new manager. Obviously, previously at Motherwell, he took them to cup finals. Obviously, it's a smaller club in comparison in Scotland as well. So it seems like quite a shrewd appointment. He looks like a really decent coach, and I forgot who it was now, so I have to apologise. But said he moves at 200 miles an hour. I'm glad he's on a break at the moment because he can have a bit of rest as well. So tell the listeners and viewers a bit about what kind of person he is.
I mean, he's polar opposite of Derek. In a lot of ways, they are very, very. They're very, 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 very committed. Is the common thing, isn't it, James? They're very, very, very committed to the job. He brought in Dermot, his trusted assistant, to help John McMahon, and he works every hour God sends. He's so ambitious and motivated to do well. He knows what he wants. Because he's proven himself. Motherwell had very similar to us. They had their own training ground. They've got similar budgets. Similar players. League One, League Two, Scottish Premier League players. So a good pool, a good network of people. He's very charismatic. So he's built relationships with the people at the university and everyone across the club. He's very open, which is great. James and I are very open as well. We tell it like it is, and what he's always feeling, which is good because we want to be at the board. We'd rather have people tell us what they're thinking rather than not tell us what they're thinking, which might be the case with Derek, perhaps. I didn't want, at the time I didn't want Derek to leave. I really enjoyed working with him. I think he enjoyed working with me and James and the guys as well. But Timmy had his own reasons. But he was quite guarded whereas Stephen's very open, which I quite like. And he's doing brilliant in the transfer window. I mean, we haven't got the lowest budget in the league for transfer budget. We always have had in the League Two. We've got a healthy budget this year. He's used it really well. He knows what he wants again. He takes comments from everyone, and lets people give their opinion. And we had a really good pre-season. We've got a very exciting signing to announce tomorrow.
Oh, really?
There's breaking news for Morecambe fans. There we go.
Thank you. Exclusive for the third tier. I'll put it out on Twitter later. Not the signing.
We signed new striker today, and all in all, I think he's quite similar to Derek in the way he wants two competing players in each position. And some of the players he's brought to the club, I mean, amazing, like McCarman from Leeds and McPake. He was my business partner, was a Harrogate Town fan, and he was at Harrogate Town, did a great job last year, and McDonald, and the list goes on. There's so many good players. Yeah,
I think you're reading my script, because that was our next question. Obviously, you've been ridiculously busy, both in and outs, but notably two players that have gone, so Big Yang and Mendes Gomez, leaving the club. You've signed terrifically well. Obviously, a lot of players coming in. Do you think you'll miss the two that have left? Obviously, deservedly going to play higher football. He did light up League Two last year, and whether he can adapt to the Championship, who knows? But he certainly deserves his shot. And I think Luton.
Jan's not, hasn't he? Hasn't Jan dropped back down?
No, sorry, Gomez gone up to Luton.
I thought you said both of them. I thought because Jan's gone.
Yeah,
back.
James is the expert on the Carlos Mendes Gomez.
Do you think that'll be a big loss, or?
I mean, we knew Jan would likely follow Derek. I love Jan Songo. I bid for his shirt in a charity auction. He's an absolute wall of a player, and an underrated player before he came to Morecambe. I'm pleased that he got that promotion on his CV when he did, because he deserved it. He is something else. He was the player we missed the most when he wasn't available last season. And Carlos in a single season went from someone with huge potential to someone who had already realised that potential. He strengthened his defensive game, improved. He became a player who could play from the wing, but he's equally cutting in behind. He was almost a finisher towards the end of the season. He was finishing left, right, head, and he was getting in behind defenders like a striker would. So I'm fascinated to see how Luton use him. But in the case of Jan, he was likely to follow Derek, and he's been Derek's man for a long, long time, so that's not a surprise. In the case of Carlos, he's destined to play at a high level, and with the best one in the world, we aren't in the Championship. And also, it's been a long time since Morecambe has been able to develop a player and actually realise some value from them, because they're on a long enough contract, and potentially see some value from them in the future, which is where we're sitting now. And ultimately, the clubs that we sort of use as our blueprint for future success are the ones that combine doing everything well on and off the pitch with clever player recruitment, clever player development, and the right degree of player sales. Because the clubs that are successful up and down the pyramid below the Premier League are the ones that develop players and sell some of them. The clubs that make a loss are the ones that don't. It's that simple. So we've got to do that, and Carlos was a good step in that direction. But I think Carlos will do really well. He's got a lot more than people realise, and I think one of the interesting things about him is he's actually not that quick. So he creates his space by being really, really good on the ball, and he's a much better finisher than I think people realise, because he started the season as a winger. He's on everybody's Football Manager and everybody's computer games as a winger. By the end of the season, I honestly don't know whether he was a striker or a winger. He was playing in both positions equally well, or he was playing like that. So yeah, we'll miss.
I think I put on Twitter when he left the testimonial to him that I saw him the night before the playoff final, and most 21-year-olds would be like, you'd be like nervous or tired or just showing something, and he was so calm and collected. And I literally left the hotel on the way as I was picking up the tickets. Rang James, said Carlos Mendes going to score the winning tomorrow.
He did a no-look penalty. I mean, in a playoff final, he looked the other way.
Fair play. Yeah, that's nerves, isn't it? At that age as well, especially to even do it in just a league game, but to do it in the last couple of minutes of what's the biggest game in the club's history is phenomenal. And I'm just glad for him it went in then.
Matt,
I want to put you both on the spot before we finish up. And firstly, thank you both of you for coming on. It's been really good listening to you and getting a proper insight into the running of a football club and just what it means to, firstly, fans, but also people that have day-to-day dealings with the running of said football club. I think it's been brilliant. So first of all, thank you very much. But I'm going to put you both on the spot. If you had your last, fiver, tenner. I'll come to you first, Charlie. Who's winning League One this season?
Who's winning League One?
Yep. Just one club. One word answer.
Good question. Ipswich or Sunderland are going to be up there.
Okay. James, same question.
Ipswich.
And then the second question is, who do you think that could be fancied to do well will potentially underachieve? Charlie?
I don't know. I've got a feeling Sheffield Wednesday aren't going to do as well as I think they're going to do. The fans will think they're going to do because they've got a lot of. They might be a bit bruised from last season, maybe. And I think, I think Sheffield Wednesday will. I think they will maybe struggle more than the bigger clubs.
James?
I think people are expecting Bolton to do well because they're Bolton, and everybody loves the idea of a double promotion. I don't think Bolton are as good as the bookies might suggest.
Fair enough. And the biggest question of all, Charlie, where are Morecambe finishing?
Going to finish 12th.
James?
Safe.
Cop out.
My question is a lot more simple. Go to you first, James. What ground are you looking forward to visiting the most next season?
Weirdly, I'm really looking forward to Portsmouth. Really looking forward to that because again, for me, they are the team that they were in the Premier League when I was actually really interested in the Premier League as well, and I just remember that era. The game I'll probably enjoy away the most is Accrington because it's Accrington, and there are our local rivals. There's a little bit of a nemesis thing going on, and I think we're going to surprise Accrington this year. Not just in terms of performances against them, but actually in terms of league position as well.
Yeah, you're building a good squad to have a good consistent season, aren't you? Charlie, over to you. What ground are you looking forward to visiting the most?
I think other Northwest was like Wigan, all the Northwest, Bolton. We had a few exchange of pleasantries on social media with Bolton last year, with the fan base. So I think what was it they said about they wanted to sign Cole Stockton and said it'd be nice. Maybe think the manager said Cole Stockton's ready for League One. He should sign for us, and then he signed for us, re-signed for us, which is great. So we'll see.
Absolutely. That's all we've got for tonight, guys. We're coming up to the hour mark, and it's flown by. James, Charlie, thank you so much for coming on, and especially thank you for the giveaway to the Morecambe fans as well. I'm sure they appreciate that.
Cheers, fellas. Really, real pleasure to be on. Thank you.
No, really.
Matt, you gonna be at the Gillingham game, Morecambe game.
Which one's the first one? Is it our place or your place?
It's the third match week. So 21st of
Jill's first, isn't it?
Was that Jill's home?
Yeah, is it yours?
Yeah, I'll definitely be there. As long as COVID doesn't stop it again.
It won't.
No, it can't.
My prediction for that game, I'm going to move Charlie up here.
Where do you think Morecambe going to finish? I think the 1 to 24 is going to be coming out this week, and I bet we're in the bottom 4 of each one. But
my 1 to 24 is coming out at the end of this week, so you'll have to watch my channel, unfortunately.
12th,
I'll copy James and say I've currently got you safe.
You're definitely not in my bottom 3 either. Our 1 to 24s this time next week, and
not in the bottom. We're in the bottom 4 though.
You're not.
Yeah, he's got your 4th bottom, isn't he?
You're not in my bottom 5 or 6, to be honest with you. So,
In
And
fact,
that's-
I'm just talking to you two tonight has actually bumped you up a couple of places as well.
I've got you in the
That's
playoffs.
not rational, Matt. That is not rational thinking.
Wait, to be fair, everything Matt called last
Not
season,
because I had you second before we started, so I'm only joking.
every time he said Blackpool lose a game, we won a game last season. So I wanted him
Oh,
to
come on,
predict.
this is an absolute lie. This become ridiculous. I predicted you to win your last 5 league games of the season and predicted 3 of them with clean sheets. Predicted you to beat Oxford in the semis and predicted you to get promoted. Yet there's still some sort of weird stigma because I got one wrong. Unbelievable.
Love it. Love it.
Unbelievable.
Right, gents, we'll let you go. Absolute pleasure to have you both on, like I've just said, and thanks for the listeners and viewers who will keep supporting this YouTube channel. And it's going to be great to have a first full season in the 3rd tier. But from all us at the 3rd tier, good night.
Cheers, fellas. Good night.
Right.